Good afternoon. It's 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. This is The Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador Paul Mathenge. This is where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Now to our first story. The European Union has pledged £4.7 billion investment package to South Africa, focusing on green energy and vaccine production. The announcement was made during the first EU-South Africa bilateral summit in 7 years, held in Cape Town. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen highlighted the shared history of reconciliation between the EU and South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa emphasized collaboration in upholding democracy, the rule of law, and international humanitarian principles. Paris Kigo has more.
The European Union has pledged a $5.1 billion investment package to South Africa, focusing on green energy and vaccine production. A key part of the investment package supports South Africa's transition from coal to renewable energy through the Just Energy Transition Partnership.
Our unions arose from the depths of conflict and suffering. Both had visionary leaders who saw that the path to peace and coexistence was not recrimination, but reconciliation. South Africa remains an emblem of hope for the world. Today, we are together announcing an investment package to mobilize €4.7 billion in South Africa, and this is in both our interest.
Von der Leyen reaffirmed the European Union's commitment despite the US withdrawing from the similar initiatives. The summit also underscores South Africa's role in the G20, where Ramaphosa seeks debt relief and climate financing for developing nations, priorities that has been sidelined by the United States amid rising tensions.
This is the time to work together in defense of what we believe in: democracy, the rule of law, including the respect for international law and international humanitarian law.
The United States has imposed sanctions on South Africa, citing human rights concerns and alleged ties to groups such as Hamas and Iran. Trade dispute between the European Union and the United States also cast as a shadow over the summit, with the President Donald Trump announcing a 200% tariff on European wine and spirit in retaliation for European Union plans to tax American whiskey. Von der Leyen responded by asserting the European Union willingness to defend its interests while keeping the door open for negotiations. Despite these tensions, the European Union-South Africa summit reinforced a strong economic and political partnership focused on trade, energy, and global governance. Paris Kigo, GBS News.
Africa's economic outlook remains steady, with projections showing continued growth in the coming years. However, a new report from the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa warns that while resilience is evident across the continent, current growth is not enough to tackle widespread poverty or foster significant social development. Teresa Tengo has more.
Africa's gross domestic product is projected to grow by 3.8% in 2025 and 4.1% in 2026, according to recent report by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. While the continent's economies have shown resilience, the report highlights that the current growth rates are not enough to drive widespread social development. Intra-African trade has become more dynamic in some areas, but its overall contribution to growth has decreased. Growth has largely been driven by reduced inflationary pressures rather than more comprehensive economic forums. Despite a global reduction in extreme poverty, Africa continues to face disproportionately high poverty levels, with North Africa being the only exemption. The United Nations Economic Commission report also draws attention to the growing threat of climate change, which is expected to negatively impact agricultural productivity and increase food insecurity in many regions of the continent. These challenges emphasize the need for stronger, more inclusive economic strategies to foster sustainable growth and address the continent's evolving socio-economic issues. Teresa Tengo, GBS News.
Now, in Davao City, supporters of former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has taken to the streets, rallying against his detention by the International Criminal Court. The protests are drawing sharp contrast, with some praising Duterte's legacy, while others demand justice for victims of his controversial war on drugs. Irene Juguna has more.
Supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte gathered in Davao City today, voicing their opposition to his detention by the International Criminal Court. Protests, which have gained momentum in recent days, praised Duterte for his efforts in making the city safer, claiming that his actions during his presidency were in the best interest of the nation.
We won't lose hope because we believe that his arrest was illegal. If the ICC is truly guided by the rule of law, it would find Duterte innocent.
Red advocates, who have long called for accountability for Duterte's war on drugs, argue that his arrest is a crucial step towards justice and closure for the families of victims. Duterte, who continues to assert that he acted out of necessity to protect the Philippines, has vowed to fight the legal proceedings, calling them politically motivated. The case before the ICC is fueling a national debate over Duterte's legacy, with many supporters claiming the detention is an act of political persecution, while others believe it is an overdue step towards justice for those affected by the drug war. The legal battle surrounding Duterte continues to divide the nation, as the ICC's pursuit of charges related to war on drugs remains one of the most controversial and significant legal cases in Philippine history. Reporting for GBS News, Irene Juguna.
Now, Egyptian wrestlers and strongman Ashraf Kabonga has set a new Guinness World Record by pulling a 279-ton train using only his teeth. The feat, achieved at Cairo's Ramses station, broke the previous record by 19 tons, marking his third record in 2 days. Paris Kigo reports.
An Egyptian wrestler and strongman on Thursday set a new Guinness World Record by pulling a 279-ton train using only his strength and his teeth. Ashraf Kabongo, also known as Ashraf Maros, pulled the locomotive and several carriages nearly 10 meters around the tracks at the Ramses station in Cairo. Crowds of people gathered to watch and cheer as he pulled up the train, beating the previous record by 19 tons and setting his third record in just 2 days.
Today, pulling a train with my teeth and shoulders, 279 tons, and yesterday I broke the record of pulling a car weighing 2 tons. I ran with it for 107 meters in an unbroken record time of 37 seconds.
Kabonga, who is in his 40s, is the president of the Egyptian Federation for the Professional Wrestlers. Paris Kigo, GBS News.
The ambassador will take a short break. We will be right back with more as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics.
What is always before you but can't be seen?
Kudiscover talent.
Kudiscover. Ulijuangaje like unaweza imba, like yeah.
Kini Trace Jumi Kipchoge kwa ngoma na mfala wananidis na wanabonga kwa ngoma, mafanjo wananipenda ndo nazidi kwa roga, wenye walenjaribu manze walishachoka na nikozabe meditation naendelesha generation niliofanya kalki.
Wewe at 1 year old ulikuwa unafanya nini? You're feeling the vibe. Ulitoa a few days ago, unaweza taka utuambie like ulikuwa unafikiria nini when you came up with the lyrics? Yeah.
So I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing. And if you're tryna win, you can be on my team. Yeah, so I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing.
You feel like you're young at heart, I'm an old soul. If you could only listen to one singer or band for the rest of your life, who will you choose?
Yeah, because we are here to entertain and educate at the same time. So the question of the day, have you ever benefited from any youth-led initiative.
What pushed me to get into the ground, one, was born HIV positive, by the way. So when I was born HIV positive, I felt like the society and the youth need to be educated much on about the HIV and HIV management.
Someone was confessing and alikuwa anasema like yeye ako HIV positive, ni student, but yeye badala ya ajue venye atasaidia wengine, yeye ana try venye atasambaza.
Unajua pia kitu kingine yenye natusumbua sisi mayouth ni kiburi. You don't want to learn. Unaona?
Yeah.
Be there to learn. My youth are doing things that they are not supposed to do. Kwa sababu anataka kitu yenye iko beyond yeye. Iko beyond haezi afford. Unaona? Manze mimi nataka kubamba wase kuchafua meza, kukuwa na dem sijui mwenye anakaaje, ndio at least wase wa feel like mimi nimeweza. Manze mimi hiyo ya kuweza, acha tuweze ki mindset. Na pia uset goals. Kama una goals manze kwa hii life sijui penye. Ni kama tu yani you should live with a purpose, not in purpose. Unajua most of us are living in purpose. Whereby yani wewe uko tu manze. Hata unataka kukatia dema na kwambia habari yako mzuri. Unadoing nini ati mimi niko tu. What is mimi niko?
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back to the Ambassador. Now, in a new United Nations report, Israeli forces are accused of committing, and I quote, genocidal acts, end of quote, by a systematic targeting and destroying women's healthcare facilities during the conflict in Gaza. The report also claims that Israel used sexual violence as a weapon of war. Israel, however, has strongly denied these accusations, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling the findings based and anti-domestic. Abdihamid Ali has more.
The UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry has highlighted Israel's alleged actions as violating international law, including the Genocide Convention. The report accuses Israeli military of damaging the reproductive health infrastructure in Gaza, restricting access to medical supplies, and contributing to a significant rise in maternity-related death. The Commission also pointed to reports of forced public stripping and sexual assault, with testimony from a Gaza nurse describing physical and psychological abuse by Israeli forces. Israel's action has sparked international debate, and the UN report is part of a broader ongoing investigation into human rights violation during the Gaza conflict. The Israeli government has repeatedly rejected these charges, accusing the UN of failing to address violations by Hamas, with Netanyahu calling the report biased and anti-Semitic.
The Commission documented a pattern of sexual violence, including cases of rape and other forms of sexual violence, torture and other inhumane acts that amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
As legal proceedings unfold, the UN's latest finding against Israel further complicates an already volatile situation, highlighting the deepening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. As legal proceedings unfold, the international community faces a critical challenge in ensuring accountability. This is Abdihamid Ali, GBS News.
A major step toward peace in South Caucasus, Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed in a draft peace deal to end decades of conflict. But while the agreement is ready, the final signing remains uncertain. What's holding it up?
Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed on a draft peace agreement to end nearly 40 years of conflict, officials announced on Thursday. The two South Caucasus nations have fought multiple wars since the late 1980s, when Nagorno-Karabakh, a region in Azerbaijan with a mostly ethnic Armenian population, broke away with Armenia's support. In September 2023, Azerbaijan regained control of Nagorno-Karabakh by force, causing nearly all 100,000 ethnic Armenians in the region to flee to Armenia. While both countries' foreign ministries confirm the draft agreement is ready, the signing date remains uncertain. Azerbaijan insists that Armenia must first amend its constitution, which it claims makes implicit territorial claims. Armenia denies this, but Prime Minister Nikol has acknowledged the need to replace the country's founding document and has called for a referendum.
First, let us confirm that the negotiations on the next to the agreement on peace and the establishment of the interstate relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan have been completed with the agreement on the text.
Prime Minister Nikol said the agreement will prevent foreign forces from being deployed along the 600-mile Armenia-Azerbaijan border. Both countries have expressed their desire to sign a treaty, but progress has been slow and tensions remain high. Vivian Scalabo, GBS News.
In a landmark legal decision, a federal judge in California has ordered 6 United States agencies to reinstate thousands of recently hired federal workers who were let go as part of President Donald Trump's widespread purge of the federal workforce. The ruling comes just days before the government faces another deadline to carry out more layoffs and budget cuts. Irene Juguna has more.
Federal judges in California and Maryland have ruled that President Donald Trump's administration must reinstate thousands of probationary federal employees who were fired during a massive workforce reduction effort across 19 federal agencies. The judges' orders issued on Thursday are a major setback for the administration's efforts. The California judge specifically directed 6 agencies to rehire workers who are let go as part of what critics are calling the Trump purge of federal employees. This comes as the administration, under the guidance of Trump and top advisor Elon Musk, has been working to drastically reduce the size and the cost of the federal government. With this ruling, workers who are dismissed without proper cause or due process are now entitled to their jobs back, alongside possible compensation for lost wages and benefits. The decision has sparked a fierce debate about government efficiency versus the right of employees, as labor advocates cheer the win for worker protections, while critics argue it could slow down efforts to streamline government operations. Reporting for GBS News, Irene Juguna.
President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia supports a United States proposed ceasefire in Ukraine, although he outlined a series of conditions that seems to prevent a swift end to the ongoing conflict. This statement comes amidst the ongoing devastation since Russia's invasions of Ukraine in February 2022, which has resulted in significant casualties, displacement of millions, and widespread destructions. Here is more on the scene.
Putin's comment on the ceasefire proposal were cautiously positive. While Russia expressed a willingness to engage in talks, the Kremlin emphasized the need for clarifications on the details of any ceasefire agreement. Putin insisted that such a deal must address the fundamental issues driving the conflict, especially the roots of the war, which he claimed stems from NATO's expansion and the influence over Ukraine. These conditions suggest that any ceasefire is unlikely to come quickly, as both sides remain deeply entrenched in their positions.
We agree with the proposals to stop with the hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that this ceasefire will lead to a long-term peace and eliminate the original roots of this crisis.
The announcement comes amid ongoing efforts to reach a peace deal, with US President Donald Trump expressing optimism that Russia might engage in serious negotiation. Trump, however, has voiced that Putin's statement was not complete.
He put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him, but we have to get it over with fast.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed doubts, fearing that Putin might ultimately reject the ceasefire proposal, although he remains steadfast in Ukraine's commitment to reclaim its territories from Russian occupation. As the war drags on, the path to peace appears increasingly uncertain. While the US proposal for a ceasefire offers a glimmer of hope, The conditions laid out by Putin highlight the deep divisions that persist. The future of Ukraine, and indeed the broader region, remains in the balance, with both Russia and the US recalibrating their strategies. The international community continues to watch closely, hoping for a resolution but bracing for further escalation. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
And that's all for today. With me, your Ambassador Paul Mathenge, on the Ambassador 1 p.m. Follow all of our stories at GBS TV. Africa is updated through the day. This is where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Thank you for your time and company.
Everywhere, GBS.